Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Safari Mack Returns to Africa. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today's episode is fairly special as we are going to be visiting the Okavango Delta at night. That's right, we're taking a little nighttime safari to meet up with a primarily nocturnal and yet highly not known animal, yet very much trafficked on the animal black market. Meet the pangolin. Now, despite us not knowing too much, thanks to the dedicated biologists who study wild animals, we've been able to uncover a number of things that might be able to help aid them in their survival. But now, as always, before we begin, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out my Facebook page for content on conservation. And if you have a question about animals, or if there's an animal that you want me to do in the future, you just have to send me an email, which you will always find the link to down in the description below. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get to it. As always, we'll start off with its family and its evolution. You know, these guys definitely look like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? Or something out of the prehistoric past. Well, that's just because thanks to evolution, they've been around. It's thought that they've been around for a fairly long time. Some scientists even believe that they've been around for at least 56 million years, with both their African and their Asian cousins having split off from each other roughly around 23 million years ago. Now, these guys are a little unusual because of a few characteristics, but for starters, they belong to the order of Pholidota and are the only surviving members of the family of Manidae. This basically, what that means is that these are a group of animals that have scale-like structures on their body, have no teeth, and lead a very simple but highly vigorous insectivorous lifestyle, or known to you and me, basically they're big on eating bugs. Now, in terms of their habitat, lifestyle, and reproduction, we're going to look into some of the special key elements that biologists have been able to discover of their thanks to dedication and hard work. Pangolins are fairly adaptable animals. They are known to thrive in rainforests, savanna, grasslands, and thanks to their adaptability, they are able to survive in some human areas such as farmlands or plantations. However, despite whether they're in Africa or Asia, it really depends on the kind of habitat that they're living in. It depends on the species. In fact, some species, it's been discovered that they are able to have a lifestyle up in the trees. Whether it's in Africa or in Asia, there's one of the biggest key characteristics that you need to look for if you decide to go on safari to look for pangolins. Look for a high abundance of either ants or termites, because these are the animals that these guys are constantly looking for, especially out at night when the prey itself is also foraging for food. Now, pangolins basically are solitary animals. Of course, they will come together when it's time to breed, or if it's a female that's raising her offspring. Now, males are roughly around 40% more bigger than the females, but interestingly enough, the males are not looking for the females. They do something else instead. They actually will use their excrements, or their poo and their pee, as a way to get the females to come find them. So I know it's gross, but you know, everything in this world has its own unique way of how they do things, how they eat, how they fight, and of course how they reproduce. So they will, after breeding, they will have a gestation period of anywhere from 70 to 140 days, to where mom then gives birth to only a single baby. Now, generally, it's always one baby, and it is not really defined exactly when the breeding season will take commence, but it depends, like I said, once again, it really depends on the species, whether you're in Africa or if you're in Asia. Though it's been recorded that some pangolin species seem to have a couple more chances of breeding seasons than usual in different parts of the world. But here in Africa, it's usually just one. Usually one. So mom looks after her baby and nurses it for at least 3 months until finally it starts to copy mom's example and eat insects. Then, by the time the baby is around 2 years old, it will be time for it to go off on its own to look for a territory and to find the 20,000 ants or termites that they need to eat every day just to keep up with their energy. And especially not bad when they're coming out only at night. Let's now skip over to the wild things. So, pangolins basically are the only mammal on the planet to be covered in scales. But it's nothing really special. It's just basically made out of keratin, same material as your fingernails and of course your hair. And now you would think that because of their lifestyle of eating insects that they may be some form of relative to anteaters. Believe it or not, through genetics and molecular data shows that pangolins are actually a little bit more related to dogs, cats, and bears, or carnivora at least. Not anteaters, but carnivora. Don't ask me how, that's just how nature intended. Finally, another pretty interesting thing is that tongue. That tongue alone, from the tip to the root, is said to be around 28 inches long. Imagine sticking your tongue out at somebody just to be rude or to make fun of, huh? This guy really does seem to take the cake. But even this kind of cute-like appearance, even that's not really enough to help these guys. Now we get into a bit of the extreme dark side of this animal. Unfortunately, this is one of the, as I've already said, this is one of the most highly trafficked animals on the black market. What does that mean? Animals that are taken from their homes, from the wild, and are thrown into the world of humans, whether it's pets, food. The list really goes on. Pangolins really do top the list, unfortunately. In many markets, they are often killed to have their scales be removed, to be made into some kind of folk remedy medicine, or clothing, or other bits. Even their meat, believe it or not, their meat is considered to be a delicacy in some Asian cultures. But really, it's the keratin scales that these people are after because popular belief is that these scales are an ancient folk remedy that can make some form of good medicine, though there is absolutely no proof of that. There's no proof that it actually works. And unfortunately, here's a bit of bad news. Who remembers the COVID-19 pandemic? It's actually now said, originally it was hypothesized that bats were the carriers, but it's also been discovered that this kind of COVID virus has been found also in pangolins in South Asian markets. So when you have all these exotic animals kind of cramped together and with a lot of maybe not so sanitary conditions, how do you think this whole thing could have been avoided, or how did it start originally? Now, of course, I'm not blaming the animal, but, and I'm not trying to blame the people for their actions, but we could have done better to prevent such a terrible tragedy that took place. Of course, now, conservation is the only way that we can help save pangolins. Zoos are working to help pangolins, while outreach programs, community awareness, and trying to think of other ways of how we can live in a world where we don't have to take animals and use it for our own personal benefits. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this week's episode. Be sure to join me next week as we uncover another misunderstood animal. the marabou stork. But until then, this is Safari Mack, and I'll see you all out there.